Hello again, welcome back. I'm Becca Berghorn, and this is Conversations with Becca, and I'm here with my friend Erin, and we want to continue talking about anxiety.
Yeah, so the first video we did in the series was just looking at how there's kind of two different parts to anxiety. There's this or to addressing anxiety, I should say. The first is dealing with the symptoms like in the moment. So the example of I'm headed into a meeting and I'm very anxious about it. Um, and thinking about what do we do in that moment to help ourselves cope. And then the second part of that is what do you do to go a little bit deeper and get curious about why you're experiencing anxiety, and that maybe there's like a deeper fix. I don't know if I want to say fix, but there's a deeper way to look at it so that you can address the symptoms at a deeper level. So in this video, we're really going to talk about those, the coping skills that we can learn to help ourselves in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, do you have a general list that you use with your clients, or is there, maybe you want to start with one or two that you use in your own life when you're feeling anxious?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny that you ask if I have a list because I am not a list person, right? So no, I don't have an actual written out list, but I think that I have probably a mental list, and certainly some things that I have used myself. And so I think top of the list for me is when I am aware that I am feeling anxious, probably there's two things. One is being aware of my breathing and how much breathing affects the parasympathetic system. When we're asleep, our body breathes slowly. We inhale and our exhales are really long. And obviously we wouldn't be asleep unless our body felt really safe. And so the idea with breathing is that we can trick our body into thinking that we're safe. And that helps us calm down. And so so that is something that I do if I am feeling anxious. There are lots of different ways that you can breathe differently to help your body calm down. And I don't know if this is the time to talk about all the different ways, but when I work with people, we often will just try a few different ways. And I tell people it takes practice. And so let's try this, so you can breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it, breathe out for 4 seconds, matching the inhale with the exhale. You can breathe in and really extend the exhale. So there's a lot of different ways that people can breathe differently, but that is one of my go-tos.
And do any of those ways of breathing, do they do different things, or does it just depend on the person? Is it just kind of personal preference for what seems to work for them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I think if you really get deep into the science of breathing, they do different things. They're not all created equal. I really try to focus with people on just finding something that feels comfortable and that works for them. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be something that they feel like they can do and that they can feel confident that it's going to help, that there is something that they can do to impact their anxiety level, and trust that it's almost like having a sense of control in a way.
Yeah, and I can see where you wouldn't want people to get anxious on top of their anxiety about breathing the right way, or am I doing it right?
I gotta pick the right one. Which way, which way's gonna help
Which one am I supposed to do?
It's like, let's just pick one, let's practice it. And then that's just what we do.
Yeah. And I love that you practice it with people. So that can be so helpful of just trying it out in your body and not just saying, oh, here, do this or that on a sheet of paper, but doing it so that when you get into that moment, there's even sort of this, I don't know if muscle memory is the right term for that, but just kind of like this imprint in your mind. Oh, here's how I did it with Becca.
Yes. Yeah. So we do it in session, and I encourage people to practice it a couple times a day, even at home, because there is something about that muscle memory. If you wait until the moment you're anxious to breathe, You might not even remember how. What was it? What was I supposed to do? Was it shorter inhale or longer inhale? So the practice of it really does help your body. It helps you know, oh, and it helps your body know, yes, when I breathe this way, I relax. And it just kind of helps it be a little bit more automatic so that when you're facing that meeting and you're getting ready to go in, and you begin to do your deep breathing or your focused breathing, yeah, it's just your body just knows, okay, I'm a little bit more relaxed. So, and when you're more relaxed and your brain turns back on, you can think a little bit more clearly and you can go in a little bit more yourself. So we
Yeah.
practice in session. I encourage people to practice at home, um, just to kind of help prepare them for it to be the most effective in the moment that they're anxious.
Yeah, that's so good. And what's another way that people can help cope with their anxiety in the moment?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I find helpful for me is, and I mentioned in the first video, having a mantra. And what I mean by mantra is really just a statement that is true. Because you might, as you're going into a meeting, you might feel like, you might feel intimidated. You might wonder if, am I going to sound smart? Am I going to be able to convey what I mean? What are they going to think about me? And so being able to have a mantra that helps you hold on to what is actually true can also help calm down your nervous system. So it might be something like, oh, let me see if I can think of something. It might be just reminding yourself, I have a lot to offer. And so you go into that meeting and that's your statement. I have something to offer, right? Because you know what you're doing. You wouldn't be in the meeting if you didn't have something to offer. And so, but that doesn't mean that in that moment that you don't doubt that or you question your ability to convey that. And so that can just be your grounding truth. And you come back to, I have something to offer. And so if someone, they look at you funny or they really question you and it kind of brings up like, oh my gosh, I don't know, what am I supposed to say? I have something to offer, right? And so it just gives the freedom then to go, I have something to offer. And so I'm going to offer what I have. The meeting's going to go the way that it goes, but I do have something to offer and I can come and I can offer that, right? So we're breathing deeply. We're reminding ourselves, I have something to offer. Deep breath. And it can just ground us back to, that's what's true. It is true that I have something to offer. And so I'm going to sit here and I'm going to offer that. If the meeting blows up, I can deal with that later, but I'm going to be here and I'm going to offer what I have.
Yeah. And is that something that you help your clients create? Like if they have trouble, they wouldn't know how to create their own mantra for that. I would imagine that you can help them think through, well, what is the, excuse me, what is the truth or what's the lie that's coming up in them?
Yeah.
And then here's how we can counter that with a truth. Is that part of what you do?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly that. As they talk about what they're anxious about, what that experience is like, what they're thinking, what their body is feeling and what their brain is thinking, as they're beginning to recognize what they're anxious about, that is exactly what we do. And I do help people come up with, if this is the lie, what actually is true? Do they believe that that's what's true? Because on one hand, our brain will believe anything that we tell it. So if we tell our brain, I'm so stupid, it's going to believe that. But if we tell our brain, I have something to offer, it will believe that. But we also, the mantra that we come up with has to be, I want to say it has to be believable. What am I trying to say in that? If I would say to myself, I'm the best basketball player ever, would not be very effective. I am not a good basketball player, right? And so there is no help that statement is going to give me because I don't actually believe that it's true. And I don't know how long it would take to trick my brain into believing that. I'm not real interested in finding out. But so the point being that the mantra that we come up with has to be something that they can really grasp onto and that it feels true in some kind of a way. It has to be believable. Otherwise, it won't be effective and it won't count. And so that's part of the work too, is figuring out what's the lie, what actually is true. Do we need to do some work to be able to help the client believe that to be true and to understand why that is true in the universe? And then what is the really short, easily repeatable, easily memorable phrase that they can hold on to that helps? It's almost like there has to be an experience of truth. Like we have to really connect with, this is true in the universe, whether you've experienced it that way before or not, it is. And some grasping a hold of that. And then the mantra helps connect them back to that experience, that this actually is true. And that actually is what is grounded in that moment. So if I'm believing I have something to offer in this meeting, probably I've done some work around really understanding I do have some expertise. I do have something to offer. Even in a moment that I might feel insecure, I can come back to this truth. I actually do have something to offer. And that's why that mantra then would be grounding and helpful for me in those moments when maybe I'm going into a higher level meeting than what I've gone into before. And it's just a little bit scarier for me.
Yeah. And I've had those experiences with my own coaches and therapists where it's like, trying to say something like, I'm a successful business person, but if I don't really believe it and being challenged of like, really, like, do you really believe that enough to say that? And then having to do some of that work of really talking it out with another person to figure out, well, why doesn't that feel believable to me? And then finding some kind of experience or some kind of truth that I can connect it to within myself to be able to say, yeah, here are the things that make me feel like I could believe that statement.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I can see where that's really important.
And what you said in there that I want to highlight too is it's finding, like, for you, I can't remember now what you said.
A successful business person.
Yes, I'm a successful businesswoman. It's figuring out, like, right, what are all the reasons I wouldn't believe that, which highlights then some of the beliefs you have, like, well, but I don't do this and I don't do that, or I don't have this skill or that skill. And it is necessary and helpful to identify those things. And there might be some truths to correct along the way so that you can come to a place of like, yeah, oh, I see that that's true. I am a successful business person.
Right. Yeah. So are there any other coping skills that you would want to share with people about anxiety?
Oh, well, it kind of feels like there's a limitless list, right? There are ways to be able to, we talk to people about visualizing different things, creating a calm place that they can go to that can help the body calm down. There are ways of just helping the brain focus on different things, even in your surroundings, to help distract your brain away from the anxious thought. Something that I do with teenagers sitting in a high school room, especially, or it really could be anybody, but find all the red things in the room, right? Or find all the things that are circle shapes. It's just something that helps you focus on something that gets you away from, oh my gosh, am I going to fail this test? What's going to happen? And so and those are all things that don't necessarily get to the root of the anxiety, but they absolutely do in the moment calm the brain down and help the body calm down enough that you can function the best you can in that moment, in the meeting, on the test, whatever the situation may be.
Yeah, well, those are all really helpful things and things that I'm sure not everyone always thinks about. Another one I've heard is like is 5 senses. So like, what are 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, three things I can hear, kind of, that's one that I've used at different times where I've felt anxious. And you're right, just having something to bring our brain back to a different kind of a focus. It's amazing how helpful that can be in the moment to get us out of that really anxious place.
Yeah, because out of that fight or flight, we get really up in the fight or flight. And so all of these things that we're talking about are things that help both the mind and the body come back to a more calm place. And I like that you mentioned the 5 senses, because it grounds you back to your body too. It's not just looking at what's around you, but it grounds you back to what I see, what I touch, what I feel. what I can taste, what I can smell. And so it does both the mental and the body, just kind of brings you back to, oh, here's the present moment. Here I am. I'm okay in this present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to end this segment. And for the next video, we'll come back and we'll talk about, like, once you get through the moments, the anxious moments. So I'm in the meeting, I'm feeling anxious. I do my breathing, my mantra, what I'm focusing on. But then I can walk away from that and get curious and wonder what the deeper work is.
Mhm.
And maybe there's something in the situation that is triggering anxiety continually. And if I can figure out what that trigger is and how to address it, then maybe the anxiety won't show up so much in the first place.
Yes, absolutely. Excited to talk about that.
All right. See you next time.
See you next time. Thanks.